And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. HealthLink BC's virtual physicians provide confidential health information and advice. HealthLink BC's virtual physicians are doctors from across British Columbia. They can help you stay healthy, get better, manage chronic conditions, and seek further treatment if needed. On today's Open Connection, we bring you part 2 of Skeena Valley Senior Society's brainstorming session debrief.
You've paid taxes for 50 years.
Exactly.
And you know, if you're not, we talked about access to doctors and medical care.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of this on the phone stuff is fine. But if you're not on the phone, if you don't own a cell phone, if you don't have a data, like a carrier plan, which is a monthly payment, like people are choosing between their medications and their food. They don't have a cell phone.
And they don't have internet in a lot of cases.
Right, so like, is that 50 or 75% of the ability to even access a voice of help medically is off the table for you?
I don't think people realize how impacted seniors are in their lives. So even if we look at it across Canada, so right now the Canadian stats say that 15% of seniors are living in poverty. So they say that 2 million seniors are receiving the guaranteed income supplement. That's to top up what they have as much as they can, to the amount that they can, if they can apply for the forms to get it in the first place.
If they have an address.
Exactly, that's the other thing. And that puts them at $17,000 a year. Canada's poverty rate is $18,000.
Yeah.
2 million seniors are living like that.
Yeah.
So of that, if you do the data and you bring it back down to where it is in our community, of course we're going to see people that are on the streets living like that, because it's not possible that it can't be. So even if we didn't see them, just mathematically, we know they're there.
Yeah.
So it's pretty sad.
And I hate to say this again, but that is their money. You've paid into this country's well-being, you've worked to build it, you've paid your CPP, you deserve like this top-up that's like income geared is nonsense. That is your money. That the idea, the covenant you had with this province and with this country was that you would pay in, and then when it was your turn, you would be able to have the end of your life be dignified, with a full belly, a roof over your head, you know, properly treated by competent medical staff, and maybe, just maybe, have an animal. You know, like the small things that people take for granted, like these are denied people who, you know,
It's very sad.
like these are veterans, these are, you know, our workforce.
Yeah.
You know, these are the people who cut the trees, these are the people who raised the babies, these are the people who built this town.
Yeah.
And they deserve better.
Yeah, I agree. So having said that, I think the objective of the brainstorming session was to identify, you know, am I just walking down a silly, crooked path that I think that things aren't being met, or was there some actual substance to it? And so the brainstorming thing that came out of, you know, this society of seniors that were concerned about that, we were all not sure, you know, are we actually going down this road? Is there actually a problem or isn't there? This brainstorming session revealed that there definitely is a problem, right? So 72 issues that are not being met in people's lives. And this is just to pull out of our community, you know, 60 people who show up at a let's talk about it session. Totally open, you know, no frames around it whatsoever. Let's just talk about what it is that, and they weren't coming to whine. They were coming because they were just curious about what we're going to talk about with seniors, you know, like what the heck. And out of that, 72 issues arise.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just, we have something that we really, I don't know how we can go through day after day unless we actually do address it. What are we doing as a community? What are we doing, you know, as a, you know, what are our politicians doing? What is our our community agencies doing, but what are we just doing as neighbors to one another? You know, like how are we treating one another? So,
and I must say though that there's a lot of mining and there's a lot of industry. There's a lot of, you know, the gas pipeline, there's a lot of things happening around us, and none of these organizations feel at all obliged to support the actual communities that are supporting industry.
Well, how sad is this? That they've actually taken some apartment buildings in some of these places, vacated them, renovated them. Those were places where seniors were living because they could afford to live in them. They ousted those people. Did not give them another place to come to, housed workers in a beautiful building that wasn't beautiful before, and now the seniors have no place to go. And I know this for a fact has happened in our neighboring communities and here. So what are we doing?
I know.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. Construction is now underway at the LNG Canada's massive $17 billion export terminal, with more than 5,000 construction workers and contractors have descended in Kitimat and surrounding areas. Let us rejoin the conversation as Sandy Pringle shares the impact it has on the local community.
And as a hub, Terrace as a hub, you know, it has increasing pressure from just like the more bodies coming in and out of town from camps that are 25 minutes up the road. You know, the increased foot traffic, the increased, you know, not everybody who comes up to work for LNG has a wonderful career and goes home every 2 weeks. Sometimes they lose their job. Yeah. They're not obliged to send them back home. No. So now Terrace is kind of like
the catch basin
for all of these folks, and you know, just the general stuff that comes along with folks, you know, like addiction, you know,
despair,
homelessness. Like now you're from Calgary, you came up to work for LNG and you get fired, you know, now you're in northern British Columbia with no way out and nowhere to stay, you know, and these things have knock-on effects, and they have, you know, so if let's say 1% of all the employees at LNG that come up the highway to stay don't work out, that is a crushing number of people for a town our size.
For sure.
And then we end up with competing priorities, right? Because where do we put our energy and money?
That's the other problem.
And honestly, I think just everyone is fatigued. Everyone is fatigued. It's sad to see people, you know, can't get into the bank, or, you know, like the downtown core business owners down there. I mean, everyone's fatigued, but these folks need help. We have no way to help anyone right now. There is no, you know, I sometimes wonder, like, where does all the money go? You know, but like, we just got a new mayor, and it's interesting because he's looked to Dawson Creek, which has very similar stats to Terrace, but they have actually put the oil and gas companies' feet to the fire a little bit about, if you want to work here and play here, then you need to pay us a sustainable amount of money so that we can keep this from becoming, you know, basically a destroyed town. Like, infrastructure is gone. Like, their hospital, same pressures as our hospital. Their population is very similar, but you know, like I think it was a $26 million tax base here or whatever. I mean, if you listen to our new mayor, he's been saying, like, we basically just paving 2 streets a year is all we can afford to do with our tax base. And he's like, you know, we can't just exponentially keep increasing property taxes. Like, you know, so how do we make this a sustainable thing where, yes, you can come up and use and definitely we're resource rich and resource based economy, but how then do we actually get to survive being a resource based economy? Yeah. Because you can't just take and give nothing, because you know, I would hate to have a business in the downtown core. I'm a social worker, so I also have great empathy and compassion for where people are finding themselves. Like, at one push and, you know, you're 2 paychecks away from the street. Most of us don't have the largesse. Like, most of us are in that boat. Like, we are maybe 6 months away if something goes wrong
Yeah.
from being exactly in that space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a real reality for people young and old all the way through. So I don't know where we're going as a community right now, but I'm hoping that collectively this will help. So we're hoping that this report will help to give some substance to some of these agencies to be able to give them a little bit more clout when they then try to figure out how they in their own, under their own mission statement and all that stuff, can address some of those things. I don't know whether it's going to make a difference or not. We hope it will. And yeah, I'm not sure where it's going, but brainstorming is definitely, this is not the end of brainstorming, that's for sure.
I was so surprised. I had to wait 10 minutes to sign into that meeting. Just the groundswell of seniors that came out, like, you know, Skeena Valley Seniors Association is how old?
7 weeks now.
7 weeks old. You guys had standing room only. There was not an empty seat in that whole place. Yeah. And that is because people feel unseen, unheard. You know what? I would have expected to have seen more anger, but it was just sad fear. And that's how our elders feel it, you know? And also understanding that, the ability to cross-pollinate our programs, one of the things that I thought was very interesting was that most people didn't understand that you didn't have to be Indigenous to go to Kermode or Kisan.
There you go, yeah.
And they have great programs. Yeah. And I really hope that people sort of start looking at websites, although that is a barrier to seniors. Yeah. But, you know, but there's call up Kisan and Kermode because they have programs there, and you don't have to be Indigenous to access them. You know, just like you don't have, there are no parameters with which you will be denied any of the programming here, but we need people to call and ask. We need to be able to see the need and meet them within our programs. And if my program doesn't meet the need that you have, your program does, you know, and vice versa. We don't compete. We're very kind of dovetailed because we come from a very specific perspective around hospice, but everyone has the same shortfalls in their lives, and most seniors are chronically ill. You know, quite a number of them. Some of them are happy, sexy 80-year-olds, and good for them. But, you know, as you are saying, 60, you know, health declines, it can be incremental, and you should be seen. Yeah. You shouldn't have to beg and ask, cap in hand, to be able to read a document.
I agree.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. In 1992, Sunshine Coast Resource Center has been connecting services and resources to people in need. Their goal is to help you find services you need to succeed in the face of life's challenges, whether they're big or small. Let us return to the conversation as Diana Penner shares what's the next steps for Skeena Valley Senior Society.
So if we think about maybe where we're going, I don't know where we're going. So so we have this 7-week-old society that has 64 years behind it because we're under the BC Old Age Pensioners group, and we have the history that comes with that. And many of us are actually part of that history. So we have that legacy that's come along with us. But now the other thing that was identified was that we need to create some sort of an information hub so that, like you say, people can access that information. So we think that that's the direction that we will probably be focused on, so that we're looking for a place. So if anybody out there has a piece of land or a piece of property that they want to contribute or donate to a society that will be able to do some pretty good work, I think, in this community, we will take it. So we're looking for a space where we can become the hub. We really think that there's so many things that are overlapping, like you were talking about within your own organizations, right? But it's not just within your own. We had a meeting with Northern Health about their Meals on Wheels program. That's a program that should be run by volunteers or by a nonprofit. It's being run through Northern Health, and they're using their personnel to run the program, which means that their personnel is short in other areas. So their caregiving in other areas isn't happening while they're trying to run a Meals on Wheels program. That shouldn't even be there. So if we can put all the pieces of the puzzle into this hub somehow, and if this organization, Skeena Valley Senior Society, can become the place where the information, I'm a senior, where am I going to go? I'm going to go to a senior center if I want information. That's the most logical place to go. But unfortunately right now, that's not what's happening in our town. So we're hoping that Skeena Valley Senior Society can find a place and can become that, create that hub. And then we can merge in all the stuff that you have and all the stuff that you have, and together we can find where the overlaps are, and we can become more effective and efficient. And we can take maybe from places like Northern Health that manpower that's being used that should be going to the actual medical programs and put it into something that can be done by a nonprofit group like us or somebody else. But,
and hopefully you'll be able to find the gaps in service as well and figure out how we can fill those in.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the fact is the province doesn't have the money. Also, the way the nursing is done now, it's like, it would be nice if it wasn't just a general thing. We had acute care. If you wanted to be an acute care nurse, this is your stream for education. But if you want to be a home care nurse, like our hospitals and our old age places cannot tolerate the amount of seniors that are coming to us.
I agree.
And so it would be nice if there could be a specialty where, you know, home care nursing and home care support could be run through a different revenue stream and be a specialty. Because if it's better for everyone, for the system, for the patients, for the families, if people can remain in their homes. And then if people can't remain in their homes, there's room for them. I mean, what's happening now in Terrace View or at Mills is that you go in, and if you can't go home for whatever reason, your kids are in Edmonton and something's wrong with your house, you stay in an acute care bed. I knew a person who stayed there for 9 months. And that's not just taking a bed for people who go into emergency and have like an acute illness and then can't stay. That is also, you're woken up 5 times a night because the person next door to you in your bed is also, you know, staying there for 7 months themselves, because there's no, so it's a storage facility rather than what it was intended to be, which is a place for people to go and receive help and then leave and be healthy. Well, this isn't the reality, because people have no support at home. And that is not a criticism of anybody. It's just the reality, because, you know, things have gone way crazy. And we weren't, like, who was gonna be prepared for a once in a, you know, 100-year pandemic? You know, it wasn't great before, but it certainly, the belly fell out during that. And we need to take this minute to take a knee and rethink the whole system.
I agree.
You know? Like we had seen, I was there for my own thing, and I saw a senior had been there in emerge for 2 days because she couldn't be admitted. And I knew for a fact there were 5 people up there who were not acute. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, it's sad, hey?
And it's hard on the staff, you know? And it's hard on families.
Fatigue. Yeah.
Right? And these men and women have done such a great job, you know, keeping it together for the last 2.5 years, and it behooves the system to change, because people also need to survive being a nurse or a doctor, you know. So like, if we're suffering, imagine the suffering that's going on there that's unseen and unheard. So at every level, this whole thing needs to be rethought, and in a gentle way. And if we need to spend some money, let's spend some money. And if we need to make a corporation spend some money, let's make them spend some money.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
According to the British Columbia government website, the Rental Protection Fund will provide one-time capital grants to nonprofit housing organizations so they can purchase affordable residential rental buildings and ownership cooperatives listed for sale to protect the renters who are living there and safeguard those rental units for a longer term. In this final segment of Open Connection, Premier Eby.
When it was potentially going to be purchased by a large national real estate investment trust or somebody else, and the distress and the strain for the people who lived in this building. What does this mean for our rents? What does this mean for our homes, for our community, vulnerable seniors? And I am so glad that we came to a positive outcome from that conversation. Thank you, Gabe, for your work. We know BC is a wonderful place to live. We know that's why we're seeing record numbers of people choosing to move to our province, which is wonderful news. But we also know that finding an affordable home is challenging. The long-lasting effects of the pandemic, our growing population, supply chain issues, labor challenges are all contributing to a very serious housing crisis. And for too long, this housing crisis has worked to the benefit of speculators and investors instead of people looking for a place to live. Increasingly, we're seeing activity across Canada and in British Columbia of large international corporations buying up rental buildings, speculating to earn investment income on homes that people count on affordable rents and in communities where people need to live. They're called real estate investment trusts. And in too many cases, this predatory model leads to evictions and rent hikes and can lead to homelessness. As a result, middle-class families, seniors, vulnerable people are facing challenges just living in their own home communities. There is no feeling worse than waking up in the morning and seeing a for sale sign on the front lawn of the building that you live in, because it opens up a whole question about whether you're going to be able to stay in your home. Now, there are others out there that would invite that speculation back into our housing market who think it's a great idea to have investors acting in this way and putting housing into a precarious position, putting renters into a precarious position in their house. We disagree. We're cracking down on speculation, and we're making investments to protect housing just like we did here at Cardston Court. And we're starting to see real results. Purpose-built rental construction was up 10% last year. That's the highest rate of purpose-built rental construction ever since data started being collected by BC Housing, and 7 times what it was just a decade ago. But despite this increase, we can't afford to lose affordable rental housing. We need to keep pace with population growth, and we need to be adding more housing, not losing affordable housing. To make sure that homes are about people and not about investors, we need to do more. That's why today I'm so pleased to announce the creation of a new $500 million renter protection fund. This fund is going to preserve affordable housing for renters across BC for many years to come. It will provide one-time capital grants to nonprofit housing organizations to purchase affordable rental buildings and co-ops that are listed for sale. This will protect renters living there now and safeguard that affordable housing for the long term. We expect the fund to protect renters in thousands of affordable units. Preventing people from getting evicted and seeing their former homes redeveloped into out-of-reach luxury condos or high-end housing is one of the key purposes of this fund. This builds on other steps we've taken to deliver the homes we need as part of the first 100 days that I've been in office. We've removed unfair strata restrictions to turn empty condos into homes available for rent. We're working with municipalities to set ambitious targets to deliver more housing. And we're taking urgent action to get people off of the streets and into stable housing. Now, if the pandemic taught us one thing, it's that going it alone doesn't work. We're all in this together. We could not do this work without partners like the City of Burnaby, the nonprofit housing associations, the co-op housing sectors, the Indigenous housing sectors. All of us are united in our belief that a home is foundational to building a good life and key to building a stronger BC, one where everyone can find a home that they can afford.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.